Steelers Nation, hold on tight, because what I'm about to drop today isn't for the faint of heart. This is for everyone who lives and breathes that steel curtain pride. I'm Jack Romano, and I just finished a marathon of red-hot information on the Steelers, and seriously, the temperature is rising. We're talking about an unexpected cut, a veteran reinforcement who might be on his way, a quarterback trade that sounds crazy but makes perfect sense, and some behind-the-scenes movement that could shake up the wide receiver room. This is the real deal. So the question is, will this combination of moves prepare the Black and Gold Nation for the future? Or could it be the start of a dangerous mess? But before we dive headfirst into this insane Steelers news, let me ask for a quick favor. We're on a mission to hit our first big goal of 1,000 subscribers here on the channel. If you're into this kind of raw, unfiltered analysis, hit that subscribe button and become part of this terrible towel nation with me. Your subscription helps a ton and strengthens our Black and Gold brotherhood. Check this out. The first bombshell of the day rattled a lot of people within the Steel Army. The cut of rookie Gareth Warren. Man, that caught the fan base completely off guard because the kid was showing some real promise, especially in pass protection. But he ended up taking that nasty hit to the head against the Buccaneers, and the concussion diagnosis practically sealed his fate. Mike Tomlin said right after the game that he would be evaluated, but the truth is, the team made a swift move, placing him on the waived injured list and bringing in a familiar name, former Vikings defensive end Kenny Willekes, to reinforce the defensive line. Now, let's be real. It's brutal to watch a kid who battled his way up from Lindenwood University, came in as an undrafted free agent, earned a spot in practice, got praised for his high-grade PFF pass block, and then suddenly his career comes to this grinding halt. The entire fan base is buzzing about it on forums, everyone acknowledging the guy had the talent to be a valuable rotational piece. But at the same time, the cold business of the NFL kicks in, because the Steelers have until August 26 to trim the roster to 53 players, and they were already stacked at the offensive line. The list is deep. Zach Frazier, Sumalo, Broderick Jones, Fautanu, and so on, a group you can't exactly call fragile. So, from a technical standpoint, the decision makes sense, but in a fan's heart, it stings to see a guy who could have been a contributor get swallowed by the harsh reality of the league. What's interesting is that in the game against Tampa, he played 22 solid snaps, gave up 0 pressures, but his low grade in run blocking showed he still had a long way to go to compete with the big dogs. And there's more. If you consider that in the previous game against the Jaguars, he gave up a sack and didn't shine in the running game either, it's easy to see why the coaching staff wasn't willing to bet on him anymore. But here's the point you'll only hear on this channel. By opening up that spot, the Steelers aren't just filling it with Willekes, they're sending a clear message that they won't carry any dead weight on the line. This sense of urgency is a signal that this season isn't going to have room for long experiments. And if the front office has already started making swift cuts, imagine what could happen to veterans who don't perform. So hang on, because the next topic will stir up our Black and Gold brotherhood even more. There's a big-name veteran who might be visiting Pittsburgh, and he could be exactly the missing piece we've been looking for. Hold on, because this is one of those stories that makes you scratch your head and think, is some serious heat coming to the offensive line? The name making the rounds is Dalton Risner, a veteran guard with plenty of experience who's eyeing some visits and has put the Steelers on his list. The guy has 81 career NFL starts, has played for the Denver Broncos and the Vikings, and even at 30 years old, he's still got gas in the tank. Last year, playing in Minnesota, he didn't give up a single sack and only allowed 16 pressures in over 500 snaps. Pretty solid numbers according to PFF. Now what's the catch? The Cincinnati Bengals and Seattle Seahawks also want the guy, but there he'd have a real shot at a starting role. Here in Pittsburgh, at least in theory, the starting line is already locked down. Broderick Jones at left tackle, Sumalo, Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, and Troy Fautanu completing the wall. But let's be honest, not everything is perfect, right? Sumalo has a history of injuries and has already been practicing a bit banged up. McCormick still needs to prove he can handle the job consistently. So, for anyone who understands the ruthless nature of the league, you know that Omar Khan might be looking at Risner precisely to create some extra insurance. Now, as a diehard fan, I see it 2 ways. First, having Risner on the roster would be a luxury because experience matters, and this team is still very young on the offensive line. Second, It's tough to convince a player of that caliber to sign a contract if he doesn't see a real chance to play. The fan base is already debating this everywhere, in the Steel Curtain Pride groups, on the forums. Everyone's questioning whether it's better to trust the young guys or bring in a proven veteran who might stunt the growth of those who are already establishing themselves. And here's the detail that only comes out in this analysis. Reisner's simple presence behind the scenes can put some healthy pressure on the starters, because those guys know that if they slip up, there's a veteran with a strong resume ready to step in. And let's be real, anyone who's seen a Steelers season get ruined by offensive line injuries knows the importance of depth. I'm left with a nagging feeling because the Bengals and Seahawks offer a more immediate lure, but you can never doubt the persuasive power of the Pittsburgh front office. The question is it worth bringing in a guy who might not even see the field, or is it better to trust the youth? That's the crossroads only a true fan feels deep down, and if you think that's already controversial, just wait for the next block because a bombshell quarterback trade idea is coming, and my friend, that one could change the entire future of the franchise. You know what happened that left everyone with their jaws on the floor? The trade idea that involves a quarterback, and not just any name. It's Anthony Richardson, who's been a little on the outs there in Indianapolis after losing the starting job to Daniel Jones. The buzz is that the Steelers could make a bold play, grabbing the kid as a rebuild project and paving the way for the post-Rodgers era. Because let's be real, Aaron Rodgers is the starter in 2025, but he'll be 42 in December, and everyone knows the man is closer to retirement than a long-term future. Mason Rudolph? The fan base respects him, but he's not a franchise guy. Skylar Thompson, same deal. And Will Howard, who was a 6th-round pick this year, hasn't even debuted yet because he injured his finger and is out for the preseason. So, what's left? A massive hole in the future of the most important position. That's where Richardson comes in. The kid is still only 23, younger than some rookies, and even with a history of injuries and shaky performances, he still carries that label of raw potential. The fan base is divided. You see it in the groups. Some think it would be a waste of resources. Others believe that letting Richardson learn on the bench behind Rodgers could be the perfect scenario. The exclusive take here is this. A lot of outsiders don't realize that Pittsburgh has always liked to bet on discounted players and help them revive their careers. It's part of the Iron City grit culture. Does Richardson fit? Maybe. The cost wouldn't be crazy either. We're talking about a trade for day 3 picks, maybe involving Rudolph or Howard. And let's be honest, if we have to send someone away, it's better to be Rudolph, who's already given what he's going to give here. The problem is the short term. Carrying 4 QBs on the roster would be insane, so someone would have to be moved right away. Now, picture the scene. Rodgers playing his last season while the young Richardson learns the playbook, gains confidence, and in 2026 competes for the QB1 spot. If it works, the franchise solves its future without spending a high draft pick. If it doesn't, Richardson becomes a free agent in 2027 and life goes on. This is the part that gives a die-hard fan that gut-wrenching feeling. Risk it on the improbable or wait for the draft. I have to admit I'd be intrigued to see this experiment because worse than having no plan is just kicking the can down the road. And hold on, because the next piece of news is for the offense. There's a wide receiver on the radar, and he might be the unexpected piece that shakes up the receiving core. Man, this one is a heavy hitter. The Steelers might be eyeing a wide receiver that a lot of people didn't even consider, Jalen Polk from the New England Patriots. The guy was a 2nd-round pick in 2024, came out at number 37 in the draft, but he's already on thin ice and could be cut on the final roster cut day. Look at the situation. On a team as needy for receivers as the Patriots, Polk only managed to finish the season with just 12 catches, 87 yards, and 2 touchdowns in 15 games, with 7 starts. Way below expectations. But that's where Pittsburgh's savviness comes in, because according to Andrew Filipponi of 93.7 The Fan, the front office did their homework and evaluated the player as a possible trade gamble for a cheap price, maybe even a 7th-round pick, or they might just wait for him to hit waivers. And that's where the fan base is boiling over, because on one hand you have the trio that's practically untouchable, DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin, and rookie Roman Wilson, who have already shown their worth. But other than that, the competition is wide open. Robert Woods seemed to have a guaranteed spot, but in the last preseason it was clear that he's not that much of a priority anymore. So, is it worth taking a risk on Polk? From a diehard fan's perspective, I'm divided. The guy has a high draft pedigree and an interesting build, but he hasn't shown a thing in the NFL yet. Bringing him in could be a shot in the dark that takes up a development spot from someone else on the roster, but it could also be that improbable find, a cheap bet that pays off when you least expect it. And this is the part you only hear here. This kind of move shows how restless Pittsburgh is with the wide receiver group. They know they need to give Rodgers more weapons now and set the stage for the next quarterback later. And even if Polk isn't the name of our dreams, the simple fact that they're monitoring him signals they're paying attention to the market. What gets to me is that the Terrible Towel Nation has been asking for a real impact player for weeks, and if only a guy like Polk shows up, it could create some heavy frustration. But you also can't ignore that championship teams are sometimes built on pieces no one else believed in. In the end, it's the classic crossroads. Bet on someone else's discard or stick with what you already have. It leaves you with that feeling that something big is still about to happen. So take a deep breath, because after all that, you can feel the weight of the moment, right? A rookie unexpectedly cut, a veteran thinking of joining, a crazy quarterback trade on the radar, and even a discarded receiver who might show up. It seems like chaos, but it could also be exactly the jolt the Black and Gold Brotherhood needs to put the pieces together. The truth is that the real Black and Gold Nation has always thrived on drama, sweat, and hope. So, what do you think? Is this the beginning of a historic turnaround or a giant mess?